They say you can't demand respect, you must earn it. But what most people don't realize is that respect isn't just gained by what you do, it's also lost by what you allow, what you tolerate, and most dangerously, by the habits you've unknowingly picked up. Respect isn't given freely in this world. It's a currency earned through action, character, and discipline. And if you're not careful, certain habits will silently drain every drop of it. If you're wondering why people overlook your value, why you're not taken seriously, or why your presence doesn't hold the weight it should, it's not always because of what you're missing. Sometimes it's because of what you need to let go of. Today, we're not talking about how to gain respect. We're going to strip away the habits that are robbing you of it, one by one. Let's start with the first habit you must remove. The habit of trying to please everyone is a silent destroyer of self-respect and, by extension, the respect you receive from others. It's rooted in a deep need for validation, a desire to be accepted, to be liked, to avoid conflict, and to feel safe in the approval of others. On the surface, it seems harmless, even virtuous. After all, being kind, generous, and accommodating are good qualities, right? But when the desire to be liked becomes a pattern of self-betrayal, you begin trading away the very things that make people respect you: your standards, your boundaries, your voice. People who fall into this habit often say yes when they mean no. They commit to things they don't want to do, laugh at jokes that don't amuse them, nod in agreement with things that go against their values, and shrink themselves so others can feel comfortable. Every time they do, they lose a little bit of their own authenticity. And authenticity is the bedrock of respect. When people see you constantly bending to meet their expectations, they begin to view you as someone who lacks a backbone, someone they can manipulate, someone they don't have to consider seriously, because if you don't respect your own limits, why should they? Trying to please everyone turns you into a chameleon, always changing colors depending on who you're with. You become so focused on fitting in that you forget who you are. You avoid conflict, fearing rejection or judgment, not realizing that avoiding necessary confrontation is a form of dishonesty, not just with others, but with yourself. People respect those who speak their truth, even when it's uncomfortable. They admire those who have the courage to stand firm, even when it's not popular. But you can't do that when your energy is spent trying to gain favor from every person you meet. What's more, trying to please everyone is a guaranteed path to exhaustion. You spread yourself thin, trying to keep up with everyone's expectations, constantly adjusting your behavior, filtering your thoughts, and second-guessing your choices. You begin to live reactively rather than intentionally. You don't lead your life, you respond to it. And in doing so, you become forgettable because people may like those who always say yes, but they don't respect them. They don't admire the agreeable, they admire the grounded. When you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to yourself. You dilute your power, your clarity, your presence. You walk into rooms worried about how others perceive you instead of walking in with purpose. You prioritize being liked over being respected. But here's the truth. The moment you choose to be respected, you'll realize not everyone needs to like you. And when you fully accept that, you free yourself from the shackles of approval seeking. The habit of people-pleasing also attracts the wrong kind of people into your life: the takers, the manipulators, the ones who sense your willingness to sacrifice yourself and exploit it. They don't see your kindness as strength, they see it as weakness. They don't value your generosity, they expect it. And because you've taught them that your boundaries are negotiable, they stop asking, they just take. And the more they take, the more invisible you feel. The more invisible you feel, the harder you try to please. And it becomes a vicious cycle of diminishing respect, first from others, then from yourself. Self-respect begins with the word no. No to what doesn't align with your values. No to what drains your energy. No to people who only show up when they need something. No to being everything for everyone. And that no doesn't have to be loud, rude, or angry. It just has to be firm, steady, unapologetic. Because when people see that you honor yourself, they're more likely to honor you too. When they see that your time, your energy, your voice has a boundary, they think twice before crossing it. The need to please everyone often comes from childhood conditioning. Perhaps you learned that being agreeable kept the peace, that love was conditional, that approval had to be earned through compliance. But as an adult, continuing that pattern only keeps you trapped in the same emotional cage. You're no longer a child trying to survive approval. You're an adult who can build your own respect. But to do that, you must start living for what's right, not what's popular. Being respected requires that you disappoint some people, that you say no and stand firm even when it makes others uncomfortable, that you walk away from situations that expect your silence in place of your truth. It means embracing the discomfort that comes with authenticity because you understand that your integrity matters more than their approval. And that's not arrogance. That's self-respect. There's a big difference between being kind and being a doormat. One is rooted in strength, the other in fear. One builds connection, the other breeds resentment. When you start honoring yourself, you become a stronger force. You start speaking not just to be heard, but to be felt. You enter spaces with clarity, not confusion. You set the tone instead of adapting to it. People respect those who value their time, who protect their peace, who stand for something. And ironically, when you stop trying to be liked by everyone, the right people start to gravitate toward you. The ones who respect your boundaries, the ones who appreciate your authenticity, the ones who don't need you to shrink for them to shine. But it all begins when you decide that your value doesn't depend on outside approval, that you're not here to please, you're here to live with purpose. Removing the habit of trying to please everyone doesn't mean becoming harsh or selfish. It means becoming real. It means choosing self-respect over comfort. It means choosing long-term value over short-term validation. And most importantly, it means choosing to be the kind of person you can respect, because once you respect yourself, the world begins to follow your lead. There's a silent trap that far too many people fall into, the habit of over-apologizing for who they are. It sounds harmless at first. After all, isn't it polite to apologize? Isn't it a sign of humility, a way to show empathy and maintain peace? But the problem begins when "I'm sorry" becomes more than just a polite phrase. It becomes a reflex, a default, a subconscious expression that reveals something deeper, a belief that your existence, your truth, your presence, or your opinions are somehow inconvenient or unworthy. Over-apologizing isn't just about the words, it's about the energy behind them. It's about how often people apologize for things they shouldn't even feel guilty for. They say sorry for speaking their mind, sorry for having boundaries, sorry for taking up space in a conversation. They say sorry when someone bumps into them. And every time they do, they teach others how to treat them not as equals, not as individuals with firm identity, but as people who are unsure of their own worth. This habit often takes root early in life. Maybe it came from environments where your feelings were dismissed, where asserting yourself led to punishment or rejection. Perhaps you were taught that being nice meant being silent, compliant, or invisible, so you learned to soften your words, lower your voice, step back instead of stepping forward. You learned that keeping the peace was more important than speaking the truth. But as you grow, those habits begin to rob you of something essential, your power. The more you apologize for who you are, the more people see you as someone who needs permission to exist. And let's be clear, no one respects someone who's constantly seeking permission. Respect is rooted in strength, clarity, and presence. When you over-apologize, what you're really doing is signaling weakness, even when that's not your intention. You're telling the world that you're not confident in what you're saying, that your thoughts and feelings are negotiable, that your presence is something to be excused rather than embraced. And people respond accordingly. They may not say it out loud, but they feel it. They take your words less seriously. They interrupt more often. They overlook your opinions. They sense the lack of self-certainty. And that translates into a lack of influence, because in every room, there are people who command attention and people who silently ask for acceptance. The latter rarely get the respect they deserve, no matter how talented or intelligent they are. Over apologizing becomes a habit of self-erasure. It starts small with little concessions. You let someone cut in line. You say it's fine when it's not. You take the blame to keep the peace. You laugh at jokes that make you uncomfortable. You lower your standards so others won't feel challenged. And over time, you chip away at your own sense of self. You teach yourself to prioritize others' comfort over your own truth. You shrink so others can breathe. But that shrinking doesn't make people admire you, it makes you disappear. Now, it's important to distinguish between real accountability and chronic over-apologizing. Taking responsibility for a mistake is powerful. It shows character. But constantly saying sorry when no wrong has been done, that's not humility, that's insecurity. That's fear in disguise. And fear never commands respect. The danger is that over-apologizing also affects how you see yourself. Your subconscious listens to everything you say. When you repeatedly say sorry for things that aren't wrong, your mind begins to believe that you are wrong for having a voice, wrong for having needs, wrong for taking up space. You start to see yourself through a lens of guilt, always assuming you're the problem, always feeling the need to justify your existence. That mindset is the opposite of self-respect. And if you can't respect yourself, no one else will either. Every unnecessary apology is a withdrawal from your self-worth bank. It's a message to yourself and to others that your value is conditional, that you must earn your place by minimizing your presence. But respect isn't earned by shrinking. It's earned by standing, by being rooted in who you are, by speaking with clarity, and by refusing to apologize for the things that make you whole. Imagine someone who walks into a room and immediately begins apologizing for being there, for asking a question, for having a suggestion. Now imagine someone who walks in with quiet confidence, grounded in their identity, speaking with respect, but without apology. Who would you naturally respect more? Who would you listen to more intently? The difference is clear because confidence, not overcompensation, is what builds trust. And trust is the foundation of respect. So how do you begin to break this habit? You start by catching yourself. Notice every time you say sorry unnecessarily. Was it really needed? Was there an actual mistake? Or were you trying to soften your presence? Then replace the apology with a stronger phrase. Instead of sorry I'm late, say thank you for waiting. Instead of sorry for the question, say I have a question. Instead of sorry to bother you, say, do you have a moment? These subtle shifts rewire your brain. They move you from guilt to gratitude, from insecurity to strength. Over time, as you practice this new language, something powerful begins to happen. Your posture changes, your tone changes. People start reacting to you differently. They listen more, interrupt less. You begin to notice that your presence carries more weight, not because you become louder, but because you become clearer. And clarity is magnetic. When you stop apologizing for who you are, you send a message that your identity doesn't need editing, that your voice doesn't need permission, that your existence is not an inconvenience. It's a statement. When you stand in that truth, people notice. They may not always agree with you, but they will respect you because respect isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, about showing up fully without shrinking. And that begins when you stop handing out apologies for simply being who you are. One of the most dangerous habits that slowly eats away at your potential, your peace, and the respect you deserve is the habit of making excuses. It's deceptive because it often comes cloaked in logic. It sounds reasonable. It feels protective. But behind every excuse is a refusal to take ownership. Behind every excuse is a missed opportunity for growth. And over time, the more you allow excuses to dictate your life, the more powerless you become. And nothing makes people lose respect for you faster than watching you constantly avoid responsibility. Excuses are comfort zones in disguise. They allow you to stay safe, to avoid discomfort, to shift blame onto external factors. Your past, your environment, your circumstances, your lack of support, your busy schedule. But the truth is, life will always give you reasons to quit, to stall, to retreat. There will always be obstacles. There will always be unfair situations. But the people who earn respect, the ones who rise, lead, and inspire, are the ones who refuse to let those obstacles define them. They own their path. They don't just take credit when things go right. They take responsibility when things go wrong. And that's rare. That's powerful. That's what separates those who are respected from those who are merely tolerated. People who make excuses often don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're being honest about their limitations. They say things like, I'm just not good with people, or I've always been this way, or I don't have the time. They use these phrases to justify staying the same, but what they're really doing is refusing to change. And over time, this becomes a lifestyle. A person who constantly makes excuses becomes unreliable, not because they're not capable, but because they're always explaining why they didn't deliver, why they didn't follow through, why they didn't show up fully. Eventually, people stop trusting them, not just with tasks, but with anything meaningful, because respect is rooted in reliability. And you can't be reliable if you're always leaning on reasons why you couldn't do what needed to be done. The worst part about excuses is how they slowly erode your own belief in yourself. At first, they protect your ego. They make you feel safe. They help you avoid the sting of failure or judgment. But over time, they become your identity. You start believing your own stories. You begin to see yourself as a victim of your circumstances rather than a creator of your life. And when that belief sets in, you lose the very thing that earns respect in this world: your agency, your power to choose, your ability to rise, your willingness to own your decisions and shape your future. Excuses keep you stuck in patterns you claim to hate. They make you reactive instead of proactive. You wait for things to change instead of being the change. You keep saying someday instead of saying today. And here's the brutal truth. No one respects a person who always has a reason why they can't. People respect action. They respect accountability. They respect those who admit their flaws, acknowledge their setbacks, and still choose to move forward. Because that takes strength, that takes courage, that takes integrity. When you live in excuses, you push responsibility away. And when you push responsibility away, you push away growth. You rob yourself of the lessons that come with failure, the power that comes with progress, the self-trust that's built when you follow through. You begin to live defensively, always explaining, justifying, rationalizing. But people don't listen to excuses. They watch actions. They pay attention to consistency. They respond to effort. Excuses might give you sympathy, but they won't give you respect. And if your goal is to be seen, heard, and valued, you need to understand that sympathy is not a substitute for respect. Making excuses is often a result of fear. Fear of failing, fear of judgment, fear of disappointing others or yourself. But the cure for fear isn't avoidance, it's action. Every time you push through discomfort, instead of explaining it away, you build confidence. Every time you do what you said you would do, even when it's hard, you build credibility. And every time you stop yourself from saying, I can't, and start asking, how can I? You open the door to growth, to momentum, and to influence. People are drawn to those who are solution-minded, the ones who figure it out, who own their outcomes, who don't waste time pointing fingers. They admire those who admit when they've fallen short without blaming others. That kind of self-honesty is magnetic. It shows maturity. It shows strength. It shows that you're not here to play small or stay stuck. You're here to evolve. And that evolution begins when you stop using reasons as shields and start using responsibility as your compass. Respect isn't given to the one who always has the best conditions. It's given to the one who makes the most of whatever they're given. It's given to the person who shows up regardless of the odds, who chooses discipline over distraction, who chooses progress over perfection. And none of that is possible while you're still living in excuse mode. Because excuses are like chains. They're invisible, but they're heavy. They bind you to the version of yourself you say you've outgrown. They anchor you to a comfort zone you've long outlived. And the only way to break free is to stop defending them. Every time you feel the urge to make an excuse, pause and ask yourself, what am I really avoiding? What am I afraid of? What would happen if I took full ownership instead? That single shift in mindset can change everything. Because when you stop making excuses, you start making moves. And when you start making moves, people notice. They start to trust you. They start to listen. They start to take you seriously. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Because you've chosen responsibility over reasons. And that's the kind of character the world can't help but respect. There's a habit that quietly chips away at your potential, your peace, and your ability to earn genuine respect. It's the habit of constantly seeking validation from others. At first glance, it may not seem all that damaging. After all, who doesn't want to be liked? Who doesn't want to feel accepted, appreciated, and understood? But when your worth becomes dependent on the opinions, praise, or approval of others, you hand over the keys to your self-respect. You make yourself a hostage to outside affirmation. And nothing makes people lose respect for someone faster than watching them betray themselves just to please the crowd. The need for validation is deeply rooted. It often comes from childhood environments where love was conditional, where approval had to be earned through performance, good behavior, or people-pleasing. You might have learned that you're only valuable when you meet others' expectations. When you don't rock the boat, when you say what people want to hear, and that programming stays with you. It shows up in subtle ways. You hesitate to speak your mind, afraid of being judged. You change your opinion to match the group. You measure your worth based on likes, compliments, and attention. You become more focused on being accepted than being authentic. But the truth is, you can't earn real respect while pretending to be someone you're not. When your decisions are dictated by what others think, you lose your center. You lose your sense of who you are. You begin to live a life of performance, tailoring every word, action, and choice to fit into a mold that makes others comfortable. But people don't respect performers. They admire truth tellers. They're drawn to those who are grounded in themselves, who speak with conviction, who don't change their essence just to win favor. Because that kind of authenticity is rare. And anything that's rare is respected. Living for validation is like chasing a mirage. No matter how much approval you get, it's never enough. There's always someone who disagrees, someone who doesn't like you, someone who criticizes you. And if your peace depends on everyone clapping for you, you'll never find peace. You'll live on an emotional roller coaster, high when praised, low when ignored or criticized. That instability erodes your credibility. It makes you appear insecure, unsure, and easily swayed. And those qualities never earn respect. People respect those who are rooted, not rattled. You start compromising in small ways. You say yes when you want to say no. You tolerate things that go against your values. You hold back your opinions, water down your truth, and lose your edge just to avoid disapproval. And each time you do, you betray yourself a little more. The world may applaud, but deep down, you know you've traded your authenticity for applause. That kind of validation is empty. It's like eating sugar when your body needs substance. It may feel good in the moment, but it weakens you over time. There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't need to be liked to do what's right. Someone who can stand alone, firm in their beliefs without seeking permission or applause. That strength commands respect. Because when people see that you're not easily swayed by opinions, they start trusting you more. They know you won't flip-flop under pressure. They know you'll speak the truth even when it's unpopular. That kind of integrity is powerful. It makes people listen. It makes people take you seriously. Validation seeking also creates a dangerous dependency. You become addicted to feedback. You constantly look outward to decide how you should feel about yourself. And that dependency makes you easy to manipulate. People can control you with their approval or rejection. You become a puppet, dancing for likes, affirmation, and attention. But the moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you reclaim your freedom. You stop waiting to be seen and start seeing yourself. You stop asking, do they approve of me? And start asking, do I approve of myself? That shift is where real respect begins, both from yourself and from others. When you no longer need validation, you become unstoppable. You take risks without fearing judgment. You speak boldly without needing applause. You trust your instincts, knowing that your worth is not up for debate. You stop explaining your every move and start owning your path. That level of self-assurance doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you solid. And solid people are respected because they're rare in a world full of people trying to be liked. You begin to attract a different kind of energy. People come to you not because you fit their mold, but because you inspire them to break theirs. Your presence becomes a permission slip for others to be real. You stop performing and start leading. Not everyone will like you, but the right people will respect you. Because in a world where everyone's chasing likes, the one who stands firm in their truth stands out. You don't earn respect by trying to be everything for everyone. You earn it by being completely yourself. That means standing your ground when it's uncomfortable, speaking your truth when it's risky, and choosing authenticity even when it costs you popularity. It means trusting that the right people will see your value, not because you shouted the loudest or followed the trend, but because you dared to be real. There's a quiet power in someone who doesn't flinch under scrutiny, who doesn't adjust themselves just to gain favor. It's not about being rebellious, it's about being rooted. When you validate yourself, you give yourself permission to walk into any room and know that you belong, even if no one applauds. You operate from a place of wholeness, not from need, and that wholeness is what earns respect. Because it shows the world that your value isn't up for negotiation. It shows that you know who you are, and that's more impressive than any applause you could ever chase. One of the most damaging habits you must remove to earn respect is the tendency to speak negatively, whether it's about others, yourself, or the world around you. At first, it might not even seem like a habit. It can slip out as casual sarcasm, passive-aggressive jokes, or venting in the name of honesty. But over time, a pattern of negativity becomes poison to your mindset, your relationships, and your influence. It creates a cloud that follows you into every room, and no one is inspired or uplifted by someone who constantly complains, criticizes, or focuses on what's wrong. Respect isn't born in negativity, it's crushed by it. The words you use reveal your mindset. When your speech is laced with judgment, pessimism, or constant fault-finding, you're showing the world how you think, and people are always listening even when you think they're not. They hear how you talk about others when they're not around. They pay attention to how you speak about challenges, how you interpret setbacks, and how you describe your own life. If every conversation with you feels like a download of everything that's going wrong, it doesn't take long before people start tuning out, because nobody is drawn to a drain. People are drawn to energy that uplifts, encourages, challenges, and strengthens, not energy that weighs them down. Negative talk also reflects a lack of discipline. It's easy to complain, it's easy to blame, it's easy to criticize from the sidelines, but it takes real character to look for solutions. It takes maturity to stay silent when you have nothing constructive to say. It takes strength to uplift instead of tear down. The world is already filled with negativity. People are surrounded by bad news, discouragement, and reasons to feel hopeless. If you want to earn respect, be the one who brings clarity, encouragement, and perspective. Be the one who chooses your words with intention, who understands the weight they carry. Because every word you speak is either building your reputation or breaking it. Negativity also exposes insecurity. People who constantly talk down about others often do so to feel better about themselves. They pick apart someone's success, personality, or decisions, not because they're honest critics, but because they feel threatened. Gossip and criticism become tools to elevate themselves in their own eyes, but those tactics backfire. When you speak badly about others, people don't think less of them. They think less of you. They start to wonder how you speak about them when they're not around. They question your loyalty, your integrity, and your maturity. Respect can't grow in a place where trust is missing. And every time you use your words to tear someone down, you chip away at the trust others place in you. There's also the damage that negative self-talk creates when you constantly speak lowly about yourself, dismissing compliments, downplaying your strengths, calling yourself stupid, or repeating phrases like, "I always mess up." You train others to see you the same way. You teach them not to take you seriously. You communicate a lack of confidence, and people don't respect someone who's always shrinking, always second-guessing, always doubting themselves. Respect follows those who walk with quiet confidence, who know their worth without needing to announce it. And that starts with how you speak about yourself when no one's watching. What you say consistently shapes your identity. Your words create your inner environment, and that inner environment leaks into everything you do. If you keep saying life is unfair, people are selfish, success is out of reach, and nothing ever works out, you start to live like it's true. You start making decisions from a place of defeat. And that energy becomes your brand. People don't respect defeatist energy. They respect resilience. They respect optimism that's rooted in reality. They respect someone who can look at the world's problems and still speak about possibilities. It's not about being fake positive or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing your focus. Anyone can highlight problems, but it takes wisdom to see the bigger picture. It takes emotional intelligence to respond with grace. It takes courage to speak vision when things feel uncertain. And when people see that you have the ability to remain grounded, hopeful, and measured in your words, even in difficult times, they respect you not just for what you say, but for the strength behind your words. Your language also sets the tone for every room you walk into. Leaders are not just those with titles, they're those who shift atmospheres. If your presence makes people feel lighter, stronger, more hopeful, you'll be remembered, you'll be trusted, you'll be respected. But if your presence brings gossip, complaints, or a constant focus on what's wrong, people will begin to avoid you. You may not even realize it, but doors will quietly close. Opportunities will pass by. People will seek others who bring solutions, encouragement, and stability instead. Changing your speech doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means mastering it. It means taking ownership of the energy you bring. It means choosing to speak from a place of intention, not emotion. When you do that, you rise above the crowd. You become someone whose words carry weight, not because you talk the most, but because you talk with purpose. You become known not just for your skills, but for your character. And that kind of reputation is rare and powerful. Every conversation you have is a chance to elevate or diminish the respect others have for you. Your words matter. They reveal your values, your mindset, your character. They're a preview of what it's like to work with you, trust you, follow you. If you want to be respected, you must first respect the power of your voice. And that means eliminating the habit of speaking negatively, even when it feels justified, even when everyone else is doing it, because the person who learns to rise above the noise will always stand out. The person who uses their words to build rather than break will always be remembered. And the person who speaks with purpose will always be respected. At the core of earning respect from others is something even deeper, respecting yourself. These 5 habits may seem small, but they are massive in their impact. They erode your power from the inside out, and as long as they stay alive, you'll continue to feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. But once you remove them, everything changes. When you stop seeking validation, you start creating it from within. When you stop apologizing for who you are, you begin owning your space. When you stop avoiding truth, your words begin to carry authority. When you stop gossiping, your character speaks louder than your voice. And when you stop pleasing everyone, you start leading your own life. Respect isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. It's about walking into the world with such clarity, such conviction, and such integrity that people can't help but take notice. So let this be your moment of transformation. Look at your habits. Ask yourself, what am I doing that's silently weakening my power? And then commit. Commit to removing what doesn't serve your strength. Commit to rising above the noise. Commit to becoming the kind of person who doesn't just demand respect, but inspires it, earns it, and keeps it. Because once you become that person, the world will begin to treat you the way you've always deserved to be treated, not because they suddenly changed, but because you did. The journey to respect doesn't start with them, it starts with you, and it starts today.